Great. And Paul, you can see my screen.
Correct.
Yes, great. Thank you. Well, thank you for joining. My name is Mark Hollis, and I would like to share customer service blueprint mapping, do some comparisons with that, and journey mapping. So I thought for a Halloween theme, I would start with a cornfield maze. My wife and I, after San Francisco, also spent a little time in Iowa. So I was thinking back to that, and I think the maze applies sometimes to what service blueprint mapping can help with workflows. So problem statement for the example I'm going to give today to try to illustrate the differences in a recent startup I was with and at Banner Health, a large 30-hospital integrated health system. Health coaches at clinics were lacking training to resolve remote patient monitoring device technical issues. And the impact was the patient experience was prolonged waiting for those issue resolutions. There was a lot of decision about who owned that, who it would be transferred to, et cetera. And the resolution time, especially at the young startup, which I'll probably give most examples on, was quite long because they were small. Their support team at first was only going through tickets entered in the app or by email, and that was taking a 2 or 3 day turnaround. And with remote patient monitoring and chronic care condition management, you usually need 16 unique data readings before you can achieve quality outcomes and bill through CMS. So we used service blueprint mapping at that small startup. I also used it with 8 directors at Banner Health with a big initiative we had in 2024. So for this example today, the outcome, we identified pain points and opportunities for improvement. And we wanted to enhance the holistic customer experience, being patients, clinicians, and device support agents. So Paul asked me before we started, how prevalent is this? I mean, most people don't know about it or they conflate it with journey mapping. It's actually been around about 20 years ago. A banking executive published the first iteration in the Harvard Business Review. Now there's a very cool online certification course at U, or you can have one of your direct reports take for some professional growth to where they go through the whole service blueprint mapping. You can take a 3-4 hour course and come away with a blueprint and some templates. You can even go to the Center for Service Excellence and just sign up with an email and get the free template. So you can do it yourself with just a little reading. So the real core of the difference between this and journey mapping is from the customer's perspective and focused on their actions, feelings, thoughts, and needs. The blueprint incorporates that outside-in perspective experience and considers the inside-out requirements across a lot of departments. One of the things I love about this is as we did it at a small organization, it really resonated because one of usually the early hires is a designer, and I would always be I would admire how they would fill up whiteboard after whiteboard with sticky notes and just go through every infinitesimal angle. Then I would love the way the product manager at these startups would just take wireframes and go through how the product would work and get feedback. So for me to be in the room, I would say after something's up, it's MVP or on different iterations, I can show you all the different parts and who owns what and how we might pick off some areas as opportunities and identify pain points more clearly. So here's an exact example. One of those startups, the health coach the patient would call the health coach. Health coach is very busy. It would go to voicemail. They would basically sometimes, as you've experienced, describe the issue in detail. And then the patient would, have to do it again and again. So basically the patient would get a call back from the health coach, and they would say, yeah, you're right, Joe. You aren't getting your blood pressure data on your app, and I'm not getting it on my dashboard that I log into. And so then she would say, okay, the health coach would say, I'm going to call tech support. That small tech support at 2 of the companies I was with, and even at large Banner, Quite often, it would go to voicemail. There would be a callback, but especially at the startup, that could be the next day sometimes. And we needed to improve upon that. So the member journey map, and there's a lot of different variations, but you look at this. You've got this, let's just even look at the feeling. You start out afraid because you've got a device error. It's related to your health. You want to make sure your clinician knows about it. Then you call the health coach, you get that voicemail. You know they'll call you back because you've got a good trust relationship, but you're still impatient. If it's forwarded to the answering service, that impatience goes to frustration. The health coach calls back and they can't help you because it's a technical issue. You're kind of thinking, you're kidding me. And then it might end up at depression. So there's variations of that. So here's what it might look like when you first get your hands on it. In this case, they've got a blood pressure cuff, a scale, and a glucometer. But this time they're talking about that blood pressure cuff that's LTE connected, cellular connection. Don't have to pair it. So that's a big plus that we've already learned about. So that's where the issue is. The customer's taking the blood pressure. They're seeing it on the cuff, but they're not seeing it in the app, and they're not seeing any kind of feedback that's auto-generated on that app. So right away, you can see with this kind of scenario, you've got either someone doing health education, device education, fixing the device error, or perhaps it's a data transmission issue. So as this goes along, they're getting an error code. There's an opportunity that the map we tag for self-service. There's an opportunity backstage as we go forward for warm transfers at different parts. So we basically said, we're going to move this from ticket email first step to warm transfer. We're going to get everyone on the same telephony platform. We're going to move this to a high priority warm transfer process going forward. But at this stage, it's basically going to voicemail or email. That's a pain point because there's that 1 to 2, sometimes even 3-day resolution timeline. Once it gets to tech support, they're going to create the ticket. In this case, after they research it, it's not something they can resolve with any of the cards or other issues or education. It's actually a data transmission. Data's getting to the manufacturer dashboard, but there's something broken between that and the patient and the client dashboard. So here's the next blueprint. So you've basically taken what you learned there. You're still saying, okay, there's an opportunity for us to talk with product and engineering about building some auto alerts when one of those data streams is broken, so we can proactively SMS and say, we realize this is happening. It'll be ETA 8 hours before it's done. You can call your health coach in the interim. So we built the warm transfer. We got it to most situations to where it was a real-time resolution. The example I have here is still not real-time. It's where that health coach, this particular client, did not want their patient to come to tech support cold. So we built the warm transfer. The health coach RN introduced the patient, introduced the details so the patient didn't have to repeat it, and then either could drop off so they could go on to the next patient, not have the burden of being a tech support specialist, or they could stay on if it was a quick resolution. In this particular example, it would require engineering, so that health coach would drop off the patients there. There would be an update as far as what the ETA would be, as far as what this is going to take to resolve. So to summarize, I think I've got 3 minutes. A CX manager using service blueprint mapping, they're looking at the entire process. The physical elements, they're looking at the front stage, the visible between the health coach and the end user, the patient, and when they bring in the health coach. That's all above the line of visibility you saw on those maps before. And they're looking at all those service moving parts tactically to see how they can improve the experience and get the different stakeholders in. The mapping includes customer actions, visible and invisible processes, employee roles, and support systems. So I'd like to reiterate there that I love the fact at small organizations, I got better buy-in from the technical team, the design team, the product team, and C-suite leadership than I did when it was just Visio notes or a table. Likewise, at Banner, when we were dealing with directors for population health or customer care, if we could get, they were very busy people, if they needed us to institute a change and we could use that detail of the service blueprint to complement, they would oftentimes give us great data points and CSAT feedback, net promoter feedback, star hospital health plan feedback, and then we could make that part of building the blueprint map. And so it was just an elevation up for me. I taught members of my team how to do it, but I also like to get my hands on it because not only is it a tactical operations fix mechanism, it actually can be a training tool too. So as a manager, I really appreciated both. Let's see, I'm down to 105. I'm going to stop there and let us build some questions if that's okay with Paul.
Fantastic. Absolutely. Thank you, Mark. You've got me spinning. Many of you know I was in client success for a while. And when you talk about being able to build trust, that really hit for me. That really hit for me because I did something similar. I didn't do a blueprint map, but I did look, I would say it was more customer journey. And then we would have different supports that came into that. And the executive team would consistently come back to me and be like, well, Paul, what if we change this? How would this impact downstream? And so it was actually really helpful in building the relationship, to your point, with the founding executive team, because they could see the need for that type of leadership on that side of the business. So we've got a couple questions. Ashley saying, my brain is spinning, so many good takeaways. This is great. What was the website for training or templates again? Mark, I was curious, by raise of hands out there, how many of you do something similar to blueprint mapping? Okay. Would you call it blueprint mapping? I'm actually looking at Ed. Okay, Ed.
We just call it customer journey mapping, but from an internal perspective. We just had two views, outside and inside.
Outside and inside. Excellent. Okay.
We called it Kanzan because we would put all the stickies on the wall, essentially, to build it out.
Okay, awesome. Great stuff. Okay, so journey mapping. Mark, what would you say is the difference between the key differences between journey mapping and blueprint? So you've got on stage, backstage, I guess, on stage, off stage, but you also had some other lanes in there as well. Are those the big differentiators?
Yeah, I would say, and again, there's so many, even the blueprint I put up for this presentation had my little twist on it. I think in addition to that, backstage view being added, and it sounded like one of your guests already has that component, and he said he had the two views. I think having the technology lane to where you're seeing where there's either interaction at a visible level, or it's basically a support backstage process. It's technology that's got its separate lane. I think sometimes the physical evidence lane, can be multi-pronged, and there's considerations and opportunities to identify things there. I think with the support processes, sometimes, that being a separate lane, it can be internal teams, it can be BPOs that you're using, it can be third-party software, et cetera, that it just gives you a sort of, a couple of different levels of granularity.
Fantastic. I really like that a lot. I think that brings a lot of transparency. If anyone's got any questions, post those in. Otherwise, we're going to get you ready for your breakout room. Fantastic. Well, we've got a lot of discussion around this. I'm actually excited to get folks into their breakout rooms, Mark. So everyone, let's give Mark some we'll give him a clap of hands with our magic fingers, if you will, or just this is clapping in sign language. Mark, thank you so much.
Thank you.
A lot of things to think about as we get ready for our breakout room. So thank you.